Welcome to another deep dive with Goddess Gardener Book Chat. I'm your host, 11 Goddess. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you being here and sharing your time as we discuss another amazing read. Going through my library has been such a journey. I'm glad that you're on it with me because today we're going to dive into Howard W. French's book, Born in Blackness: Africa, Africans, and the Making of the Modern World, 1471 is specifically where we're going to start our journey, I guess you could say. It's narrated by James Foley, so I'm going to let this get started. Don't forget, please subscribe. Please send a like if you enjoy this video. And always, this is a safe space where we enjoy all of these wonderful written words. And this is another one. If you have any requests on things that you'd like to talk about, things that you'd like to see us share, because right now we're diving into my personal library and it is crazy extensive. And it keeps growing. I have this weird obsession with buying more books. It's an issue. But let's get started on Born with Blackness so we can go ahead and talk about it in the personal perspective.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how we love to uncover hidden gems of history? Well, buckle up because today we're going on a journey back to 1471.
1471.
Yep, you heard that right, 1471. Now, I know that might not seem like the most exciting year, but trust me, it's a pivotal one, especially when you look at it through the lens of Howard W. French's book, Born in Blackness.
Born in Blackness, a fascinating read.
Absolutely, and for those who prefer to listen, James Fowey does a phenomenal job narrating the audiobook. Seriously, he brings the history to life. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's lay the groundwork. This book isn't just about recounting events, it's about challenging the way we view history. You know, the traditional Eurocentric narrative that often sidelines Africa's role.
It's like looking at a tapestry but only seeing a few threads. Born in Blackness pulls back the curtain and reveals the full picture, showing how integral Africa was to shaping the world as we know it.
And it all starts with this seemingly insignificant year, 1471. Now, why is this year so crucial?
Well, 1471 is when Portuguese expeditions, led by Fernão Gomes and King Afonso V, reached the West African coast, specifically the area we now know as Ghana. This contact, often presented as the beginning of Africa's story in history books, is where Born in Blackness takes a sharp turn.
So instead of starting the story with Europeans arriving in Africa, this book flips the script.
Exactly. It asks us to consider what came before, to understand the rich and vibrant societies that existed long before European contact.
Because Africa wasn't just an empty landmass waiting to be discovered, right?
Right, it was teeming with empires and kingdoms, for instance, the Mali Empire. We're talking about a kingdom of immense wealth and influence, famous for its gold and elaborate trade networks.
Not to mention the Kingdom of Congo. That's another one that stands out.
Oh, absolutely. The Kingdom of Congo had a sophisticated system of governments. They had councils to advise the king, a judicial system, and even mechanisms to limit the king's power.
Whoa, hold on. That sounds incredibly advanced for its time.
It was, and it completely dismantles this outdated idea of Africa being behind Europe. These were complex societies with their own forms of government, laws, and culture.
And this was all well before 1471. The book even talks about Mansa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca way back in the 14th century.
Ah, yes, Mansa Musa. His pilgrimage was a spectacle of wealth and power. Imagine this. He traveled with a massive entourage, carrying so much gold that it actually impacted gold prices across the regions they passed through.
Talk about making an entrance. It definitely put Africa on the map, so to speak.
It did, and it really highlights Africa's global influence centuries before 1471. In fact, Mansa Musa's journey demonstrates a level of organization and logistical skill that is just mind-blowing. Can you imagine coordinating thousands of people across the Sahara Desert? It's incredible.
That's a logistical nightmare I wouldn't even want to think about. But speaking of key players, the book introduces us to some pretty pivotal figures from this era, right?
Oh, absolutely. There's King Afonso V of Portugal, the driving force behind Portugal's expansion into the Atlantic. Driven by ambition and a desire for wealth, he sets in motion the events that would lead to Portugal's dominance in the region. And on the African side, there's Nzinga Mbemba, who becomes King Afonso I of Congo.
So two leaders with very different goals and challenges.
Exactly. Afonso I found himself in an incredibly difficult position, trying to maintain his kingdom's sovereignty and protect his people's culture while facing increasing pressure from European powers. Talk about a tightrope walk.
It's amazing how Born in Blackness brings these historical figures to life, giving them depth and nuance. And it doesn't stop there. It also sheds light on a group of individuals often ignored in traditional history books, African navigators and traders.
You hit the nail on the head. This is one of the book's greatest strengths. It gives agency back to these individuals. We weren't simply passive bystanders, they were skilled navigators with deep knowledge of currents, winds, and shipbuilding who played a critical role in shaping the transatlantic trade.
So not only were African societies complex and well-established, but their people also possessed skills and knowledge that were vital to navigating the Atlantic.
Precisely. In fact, their expertise was highly sought after by Europeans venturing into uncharted waters. This is a side of the story that often gets overlooked.
It's fascinating how Born in Blackness challenges our assumptions and fills in these crucial gaps in our understanding of history. So let's get to the heart of it. What's the book's core argument? How does it change our perspective on the world?
Howard W. French argues that Africa played a crucial role in shaping the modern world. He makes a compelling case that the resources and wealth extracted from Africa, particularly during the transatlantic slave trade, fueled Europe's economic engine.
That's a pretty significant claim. It's suggesting that the commonly held narrative of Europe's rise to power is incomplete, that Africa's contribution has been downplayed or even erased.
Exactly. French argues that this wealth from Africa was essential to the rise of capitalism and even the Industrial Revolution in Europe. It's a perspective that forces us to re-examine the foundations of modern global economics.
It makes you wonder how much of our understanding of history is based on a limited perspective.
That's the question Born in Blackness forces us to confront. But while it highlights Africa's contributions, it doesn't shy away from the horrific cost. The transatlantic slave trade left a brutal legacy of suffering and exploitation.
It's a sobering reminder that progress often comes at a terrible price.
Absolutely. And the impact of the transatlantic slave trade wasn't just limited to that era. It created economic networks and power structures that continue to influence global trade patterns even today.
It's a reminder that history isn't just about dates and names. It's about understanding how past events continue to shape our present. And beyond the economic impact, there's also the profound cultural legacy of the African diaspora.
Oh, absolutely. The forced migration of Africans to the Americas led to the formation of entirely new identities and cultural expressions. The impact of the African diaspora can be seen in art, music, philosophy, and just about every aspect of culture across the Americas.
It's like this ripple effect that continues to expand. We've covered a lot, but I want to mention one more thing. James Fauhe's narration of the audiobook is simply outstanding.
I agree. James Fauhe does an incredible job. He brings a depth of emotion and understanding to the narration. He makes you feel the weight of the history, but also the resilience and the beauty of the cultures being discussed.
He truly elevates the listening experience. So if you're looking for a way to dive into Born in Blackness, I highly recommend the audiobook.
It's a fantastic way to engage with this powerful and thought-provoking work.
Well, folks, this has been quite a journey. Born in Blackness has really opened my eyes to a different perspective on history. It's clear that Africa's story is far richer and more influential than traditional narratives suggest.
It makes you wonder what else is out there, what other stories are waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. It's like a call to action to keep digging deeper, to keep questioning the narratives we've been given, and to uncover the full tapestry of human history. If 1471 was such a turning point, what was the world like before then? What perspectives are still missing from our understanding?
These are the questions we should all be asking.
Absolutely. Born in Blackness has given us a glimpse into a hidden world, a world full of complexity, innovation, and resilience. It's a reminder that history is never simple, and there's always more to learn. So for all of you listening, I highly encourage you to seek out Born in Blackness and embark on your own journey of discovery. Who knows what you might find? Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.
One of the great things about being such an avid reader for me is when you look at the multitude of genres that exist that provide you with different directions of information that sometimes weren't available to you. And that's how I look at books that speak to history. Now, I've said this before in another review. Whenever you look at the reflection of history, you're only going to get as much information as is availed by those at the time who made sure that this was the narrative that they wanted out there. But what we're going to share about this book are things that are factual, they have receipts, and the impact of what happened in 1471 on today, because that's why I read these books. I'd like to look at these relationships that we have with the past as growing experiences, the very definition of Sankofa. So I want to share with you that at the root of what you see about early West African contact, it wasn't about gold and it wasn't about the slave trade in the beginning. It wasn't predominantly about that. Portugal came for sugar. This was about getting the country, getting the world introduced to this commodity that was coming out of Africa. One of the earliest experiments was the island of Salto. I cannot say it. It's Saotome. I even ran it through translation so that I would get it. What I think it's Saltome, but don't hold me. Anyway, this is located right off the coast of Central Africa. And this tiny volcanic island under Portuguese control became the test lab for the largest scale sugar plantation at the time. Then sugar began to be introduced around the world. And along with the other commodities, the riches of the wealth that were coming out of the country, the commodity of humans that they will bring out of the country, along with this trade. These are through lines that history has talked about. Some of the things I learned about in school, especially about the sugar trade and the human commodity trade. Um, but I think when you translate any of this history into modern society, I guess you could say, how we live now, reflective of the actions taken back then. You have to remember, Europe didn't indulge in sugar. And if you look at the way that they've constructed their diet, the rules of what they allow their citizens to even consume as food packaged and presented to them, sugar is not something that they feel that all too comfortable with. They use it, of course, but they use it with a small modicum of savory is more important than sweet. Or at least that's my interpretation from what I've absorbed. I'm not European and I don't live in Europe, so I can't speak to that in a more factual way, but just looking at the way history has lent itself. Sugar, being a seemingly simple pleasure, was weaponized. And it was weaponized into an engine of empire and human suffering. I think there are a lot of elements that play out today tied to commodities like corn, like sugar, like wheat, and things of that nature. And so when you find yourself asking questions, why are things like this? Why, how did we get here? Why is this such a significant issue? This is why we read. This is why we come to our space, our safe space to discuss books, history, and all the genres in between that we capture and have questions about. So hopefully sharing this narrative and sharing that this book exists allows you some other avenue of research, enjoyment, entertainment, and education about your modern life as it relates to how history has impacted it. Thank you so much for joining me. I have so many more books to come, so I would definitely want you to stay tuned. I'll see you in the next time, at the next time, I should say, we talk about a good book.